Hello everyone, it's Summer-Ween. If you are like me and are spending these hot days daydreaming about the chillier weather, then join me. If I sound kind of funny, by the way, it's because I do. I'm coming down from a sinus infection. Daydreaming cannot be a thing without escapism. So let's talk about the best escapism that humans have ever dreamt up, and that is books. So just to introduce myself first, because this channel is really small and it's been through a lot of changes, I am Nicole Labros. Hello. And this is Nettle. However, when I upload spooky content, I'll still be titling it under Beauty in the Brains, and I will be making a separate playlist for that, just so that if any of you don't want to be here for the crochet or the slow living or the homemaking, any of that stuff, you can just go straight to the spooky things. So I made a video last year on the same exact topic of my spooky bookshelf. But it has been updated. I have added a lot more books. I've read a lot more books since then as well. So to begin, this is what the spooky bookshelf is looking like. It's pretty crammed, I know. This is where we obviously house our router, and it is also home to a few other completely non-spooky books. Like I have my Torah, which I made this really pretty crochet book cover for it. And, well, I guess you could argue that the Bible is kind of the OG spooky book, but I digress. I also have my Judaism study book and notebook here, but that's really just because it's the easiest spot to have them. I also have a tea set here that I need to figure out where else to put it because it takes up a lot of space. And the top shelf I love. It goes through a lot of changes throughout the year. I redecorate it for autumn and Halloween as well as for the winter holidays. But this is basically what it looks like for the remaining months of the year. But yeah, I do feel like the spooky bookshelf needs to get updated. Right now it looks empty just because I have the books in front of me, so it's easier to show you guys. Yeah, and also I just need more storage. Like every household needs better storage, come on. Like let's be real here. And then last little update of now compared to last video is that I have developed quite the green thumb. This is Mr. Lurch Monster, because my dad says that the plant reminds him of Lurch from Addams Family, which I do agree with, so he's Mr. Lurch Monster. But we usually just call him Mr. Monster. And yeah, we love him. And then we have our little palm tree in the back as well. And then we have this little plant, I forget what it's called. We call her Bussin' Betty. Don't ask us why we do. And then I have this little philodendron is what I think it is. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's a philodendron. And then of course this is the same chair from the last video. However, I do have some big plans for this chair. I will be reupholstering it with purely granny squares alone. And I will be exhibiting it this fall for one of my husband's art pieces. It's a collaborative project that we're doing. Well, I always help him with his art projects, but this is strictly going to be like a Nettle project mixed in with his works as well. And hopefully I sell it, and if I do sell it, then I'm going to get the classic IKEA reading chair, which I have been wanting since I knew what IKEA was, and that way this whole little area will become the little reading nook of my dreams. Spooky reading nook of my dreams. So let's light a candle and let's grab our beverage. I have this adorable little spooky mug that I brought out from storage literally just a few minutes ago for this video. So without further ado, let's talk about books. I'm currently reading Before the Coffee Gets Cold by Toshikazu Kawaguchi. This is the cover. The cover alone, I mean, come on guys, like it's fantastic. The stories are also fantastic. So I'll just read you a bit of the back. I know that's really boring to some people, but I'll try to make it interesting. And then I'll tell you a little bit, spoiler free, all of this is spoiler free by the way, of what it's really about. So, are you listening? Kazu continued. When you return to the past, you must drink the entire cup before the coffee goes cold. I don't actually like coffee that much. Kazu opened her eyes wider and brought her face an inch or so from the tip of Fumiko's nose. This is the one rule you have to absolutely obey, she said in a low voice. So it's super mysterious, super intriguing. Yeah, so basically there's a cafe in Tokyo, and it's a really like boring cafe. It's really plain, it's really simple, it's non-touristy. It's kind of like the type of cafe where like if you go in to like check it out, you will probably just like leave immediately, like, oh, like thanks, we were just looking around type of thing. But there's a few regulars, like maybe one or two regulars who go, and the main story, the very first story is about Fumiko. So she is dating this guy who she really wants him to like pop the big question, and she thinks that's what he's going to do, but instead they break up. And I swear that this is not spoiler. So she's, she becomes desperate. She wants to have that time back. She wants to be able to tell him what she wanted to tell him in the moment when he was breaking up with her instead of proposing to her. And she just wants to like reclaim herself basically. But there is also a part of her that wants him back, of course, and she wants to fix the past so then that way she can fix the future. However, and this is what I love most about this book, is that even when you go back in the past, you can't change the past. Even if you do try to change the past, it will absolutely not change the future. When you come back to present day, everything will be exactly the same way that it was. So the next thing that I'm reading and that I'm loving is this Agatha Christie short story cycle, The Last Seance. The Last Seance is based on the very first short story that is in the cycle. And wow, I wanted that to just go on forever. And the reason why I love the short story cycle so much is that when you read a short story and you want that short story to never end and you just want like a whole novel on that short story, that's when you know it's a good short story. And literally every single one of these short stories so far has been that way. So I highly recommend this one. All right, so these two are newly added to the shelf. My husband and I, we do have a lot of children's books from our own childhoods, but we have been in the habit of here and there, when we have a little bit extra spending, we grab a children's book that we have been wanting for any future children of ours. We got a little golden books, The Nightmare Before Christmas. I'm not kidding when I tell you that I've read this like 5 times because it's just so good, and the illustration work is just so fantastic. It's not exactly in the Tim Burton style, but there's just something about it that works so good. It's so emotional and so animated. Did a great job in redacting the story and getting all the most important parts of the story, summarizing the story into just really simple, streamlined, but still very beautiful, and still, it misses out on a lot, but at the same time, you feel like you're still getting the whole story. So I think it's a great introduction of this fantastic movie and this fantastic story to small children, when maybe they're at an age that they might be a little too young to actually watch the whole movie. This is like the perfect way to like introduce them to that. And then next is Roald Dahl, The Witches, which I've never read before in my life, and I'm still waiting to read this one. I kind of want to read this maybe in like a day or two sitting, maybe at like a picnic or something on a nice October day, something like that, just because, I mean, look at this, and it has the original illustrations by Quentin Blake, and there are never before seen chapters inside, which I'm super excited about. Of course, there's like issues with Roald Dahl, like He was an anti-Semite. There was like a few other personality issues with him. Like his character wasn't exactly the best, but I am the type of person who is really good at separating art from artist. But even then, I do have my own limitations where, you know, we all have our comfort zone. Like, what are you comfortable with? Like, for example, I've been binging Buffy the Vampire Slayer, the series, and I'm just so obsessed with it. But of course, like, Joss Whedon is a very unsavory character, and sometimes when I watch this show, for example, it is hard to separate him from the work, but I try to just refocus onto the story and refocus onto the actors. But yeah, Roald Dahl, The Witches, it is a great story of its own. It's so fun. It's one of my favorite childhood movies in the world. I do love a classic nasty witch, and this is what this book provides. This book is all about horrible witches that want to kill children. So maybe I shouldn't say that for you too, but you know what the story is about. My other favorite thing about this book is that the pages are painted this like Halloween green, and I'm just living for it. I'm so excited to read this autumn, and it's gonna be such a little treat. All right, and just real quick here, I have 2 coloring books that I usually keep on the spooky bookshelf. Hold on a second. My sister actually gifted these to me for Christmas. And so the first one is Cute and Spooky Coloring Book. And if you want to make fun of me, go right ahead. I'm used to it. Laugh all you want. But I really enjoy doing this. I literally, like, this is literally me. Like, come on. Like, seriously. That is I. And then I love this one too. This one's so adorable. I love it so much. And yeah, it's just a feel-good little coloring book. Makes the really hot, sweaty, summery days go by very easy. And then I have this Halloween coloring book. This is volume 1. And this one's actually a dedicated adult coloring book. So like, for example, I have this one here. So I go in with coloring pencil first, and afterward I go in with watercolor. And then I still need to finish this one off with a like thin black Sharpie to get that contour in. And then this one's my absolute favorite, are these 2 little pumpkins. One of them is a little pumpkin witch. And I just did the same thing here, is that I did the coloring pencil and then the watercolor. And I'm still not done with the watercoloring on this one. And then what I want to do is frame them and use them as DIY decor for Halloween this year. All right, and now I have some classics. These are the Wordsworth editions, and these are all illustrated by Jordi Solano, and I'm just obsessed with these. First of all, look at how they stack, which is so important. You might be familiar with them. Just amazing. So first off, I have Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. I didn't know this at first, but Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde is a really short story. And so this starts off with Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, and then it continues with a bunch of other tales and fables is what it says. It literally says other tales and fables. It has The Merry Men, Will o' the Mill, Markheim, Thrawn Janet, Olala, and The Treasure of Franchard. I don't know what those ones are like yet, but I will be giving them a go. It is a super classic story, but his writing isn't like the most exciting. It's like one of those classic stories where it's like the writing isn't exactly all that exciting, but the story is obviously just such a classic that you just gotta read it at some point in your life. Now my dear friend Danny, my husband's name is also a Danny. There's a lot of Dannys in my life. So my best friend Danny Resnick, she got me this edition of Dracula. Ta-da! It's so amazing. This is what the back looks like. It says, "The children of the night, what music they make," which is literally one of the best quotes in the world. So I do have my original copy of Dracula, the copy I got when I was like 15, the first time I ever read Dracula. And I will keep that copy until the day I die. But this copy is just so beautiful and so special that I'm kind of like, I'm not going to do it now, but in the future, like when I get a place of my own, I think I might start like a Dracula novel collection and just like collect different types of hardcovers of Dracula and just like have their own little shelf in my hopefully book room, my own little mini library. So yeah, this is a very special book to me and it's so beautiful. I love it. Next is not a spooky book, but it is, of course, if you know, you know, the all-time quintessential cottagecore autumn book, and that is Anne of Green Gables. I feel like so many people have this copy of Anne of Green Gables, like, oh, actually, this is from a different illustrator. My bad. I thought they were all from the same illustrator. So the Dracula and the Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde are illustrated by Jordi Solano. And then this Anne of Green Gables is illustrated by Claire Shorrock. This book I devoured. Like, it was so good. This was the first time I actually sat down and read the novel in its entirety. And I just need all of the other Anne of Green Gables books. I need Anne of Avonlea and onward. Like, I just can't get enough of Anne. And I don't think any of us can. So that's what I'm going to do in the near future as well, is get more Anne of Green Gables books. Next, I have Mrs. Dalloway by Virginia Woolf. And this is also a fantastic cover that has a paint chip on it. Oh, I got it off. Okay. So this is the cover. And this is also by Jordi Solano, illustrated. I don't know if this will remain on the spooky bookshelf. I kind of just have it on the spooky bookshelf because it is the Wordsworth edition and it goes along with the other Wordsworth editions that I have. But after I read that one, because I have not yet, I will decide if it still goes on the spooky bookshelf or not. It is of the surreal quality, so I have a feeling it might stay on there. I'm not sure. And then I have Little Woman, of which, just like Anne of Green Gables, I have read the redacted version. I've never read the entire novel yet. And I know it is obviously associated with winter, more than fall, but in my memory, it's a very cozy, comfortable book, and that's kind of an exception on the spooky bookshelf, is that if it's cozy and comfortable and like cottagecore, then it also stays on the shelf. I read Dracula, which I am just absolutely obsessed with. I could not stop reading this book. Like you need to read it. If you have read Dracula by Bram Stoker, you need to read this. This is actually by Dacre Stoker, which is a relative of Bram. And it is also written by J.D. Barker. And you just need to do some research on this book, and you need to do some research on Bram Stoker himself and how he made Dracula, the novel. Oh my god, it is like a whole rabbit hole of itself that I can't really get to in this video, so it'll be super, super long. But yeah, this was, and I hate to say it, it was more entertaining than Dracula by Bram Stoker. But then again, like, this is written in a way for modern readers. Like, it's not written in a way for modern readers, but at the same time it is. So, like, there's no modern lingo or anything like that. But just the way that it rolls out, I would like to think that we have been getting better at literature throughout the years. Like, people who write literature, they get better, okay? We get better as a society. I'm not going to say that this is better than Bram Stoker Dracula, but it's up there. It's pretty much up there. So this is Lovecraft Country, and yes, it does have Jonathan Majors, the actor, like right front and center. Now, this is another thing that I can't get into too much in this video because or else it'll be super long, and I feel like, so if you don't know, to begin with, Jonathan Majors has loads and loads of SA accusations. My point here is that I do want to make like a little paper book cover because this is a paperback. I do want to make a little cover just because, like, although I loved the show, I'm still not done reading this book. As you can see my bookmark, I have been obsessed with it, but not obsessed enough that my attention goes everywhere. So I read like 4 to 5 books at a time. Anyway, I do want to make a little cover just because, like, when I do pick this up to read it and then I like look at the front cover, I'm like, ooh, okay, like, you know, like it takes me back to what I was talking about with Roald Dahl, is that when it comes to separating the art and the artist, we all have our comfort zone, and for me this is a bit outside of my comfort zone, where I could probably still watch the show, but having him like right front and center on the book, I don't know what it is. It's just like it just does something to me that I'm like, I kind of just want to cover this up and forget about it, because he really has nothing to do with the book. But this was the only copy that I could find, was the one that had like the show on the front. Next is Stephen King's Apt Pupil. My husband actually picked this up for himself. I do really want to read it. It's really short, which is absolutely surprising for a Stephen King novel. Alright, so Todd Bowden is an apt pupil. Good grades, good family, a paper route. But he is about to meet a different kind of teacher, Mr. Dusander, and to learn all about Dusander's dark and deadly past, a decades-old manhunt Dusander has escaped to this day. Yet Todd doesn't want to turn his teacher in. Todd wants to know more, much more. He is about to face his fears and learn the real meaning of power and the seductive lure of evil. So basically, it's like this kid Todd who has like a tutor, basically, or like this teacher who really takes a liking to him, but then he finds out that he was a Nazi and, you know, basically currently still is a Nazi. I might have to bleep some of that out just because YouTube gets really weird about saying that word, and it's like, look, YouTube, look, they exist. If, you know, it's like the Voldemort thing, like if you fear about saying the name, it's not gonna make them go away. Like, you have to confront your fears, YouTube, okay? And anyway, so I'm really curious as if to, because, I mean, obviously Stephen King is very anti-Nazi, so I know that for a fact. And so I'm very excited to read this novel just because I feel like, this is just a guess, I think that it will have that Indiana Jones effect, where it'll just be like the Nazis get what they deserve, and like it's just gonna, I feel like this is gonna be a very satisfying yet suspenseful novel because of its subject matter. Alright, so second to last book, I have Alchemy and Mysticism, which is by Taschen. And now if you watched the last Spooky Book Shelf vlog, then you know that I have a bunch of like magic and mysticism books. They're still on here. I do highly suggest that you do watch my first vlog because there was like 34 books that I had covered there. Those are still on here. This is the only type of alchemy and mysticism book that I've gotten since then. These are on the pricier side, and these are like full out research books for my husband and I. We love researching about the occult. It does also cover legitimate Jewish, like, Kabbalistic sources as well. So, but then of course there are other cultures that are involved in this book, like Welsh and all sorts of other super cool, fun cultures and religions. So I would highly suggest this one by Taschen. All right, and now last but not least is my favorite. It is this big bad boy. Look at him. Look at him. Ah, I love it so much. So this is The Art of Horror Movies by Stephen Jones and John Landis. If you don't know who John Landis is, then we can't be friends, okay? Like, that's just how I work. So this is an illustrated history, and it's the expanded edition, and it won an award, the Rondo Hatton Classic Horror Award. So you know that this is good. This is basically what we're looking at here. It is highly illustrated. Like, highly, highly illustrated. It is. I literally just lost my damn mind. So my husband brought this home for me one day. He like went out for a business meeting or something like that last October, and he brought this back for me, and oh my gosh, I couldn't handle it. I really couldn't. They have a whole section dedicated to Lon Chaney's London After Midnight, and if you know that this is a lost film. But it's just one of those movies that I'm fascinated by because nobody knows what goes on in the movie. Like, it's just a completely lost film, and it just is so intriguing to me. So, yeah, they got, of course, the king, Bela Lugosi, and they have the other king, Boris Karloff, Daddy Lugosi. They got it all. They got the Hammer films. They got it all. They got it all, guys. They even have up to modern films like The Exorcist, and they go all the way up into like Chucky, Tusk. They have Tusk in here. Like, they cover everything. They cover absolutely everything. Let me see what's the very last film that they have up in here. Yeah, so the very last film that they have in here is The Color Out of Space, which I think was made, in 2019. So it goes from like one of the oldest horror films that we know of today up until 2019. So this is just so amazing, and I love this book to death. So just to end this video, I wanted to leave off on a spooky book wish list that I have going. Most of these I found through Pinterest, actually. So the first one is called Creating Your Vintage Halloween. How to Sell a Haunted House, The Halloween Store, Halloween Season, This is Halloween, The Spellbook of Katrina Van Tassel, which is a reimagined version of the classic of Sleepy Hollow, Weird Woods, Tales from the Haunted Forest of Britain, and that's more of like a kind of like textbook collection of folk tales and stuff. So it's not a novel, it's a collection of real folk tales, which I love that stuff. In the Company of Witches, Roald Dahl's Ghost Stories. So of course I want all the spooky books in the world, but these 10 books are on my list of what I want to get for this year. I probably won't get all 10 books. I'm a bit more spontaneous than that. So I'll probably be getting some spooky books this year that are completely not on my list, that I just find in the moment and that I'm enraptured by and that I get and that I read. But these books, these 10, are some that I'm super interested in and have been for quite some time. So I feel amazing. I feel very happy, and I hope that you are happy. It felt so good to get all spooky today, get my spooky glam on, and talk about spooky books, light my pumpkin cinnamon scented candle, break out the spooky mug. It is officially Summer-Ween. There's just a few short months, and then before we know it, it'll get chilly. We're gonna be, wrapped up in our favorite cardigans. We are gonna be doing all the spooky stuff, and I just cannot wait for summer to be over. So once again, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!